Hey everyone, Adam here, So Wizard Podcast. Got another interview for today. I got to sit down with Raphaello to talk about his new movie Unchained. Ignore the ticker in the first half, three-quarters of the video. I went on bad information provided by IMDb, and I shouldn't have. Raphaello's new movie Unchained comes out on July 2nd on VOD. It is not available now on Plex TV, and neither him nor I even know what Plex TV is. So Unchained coming to VOD July 2nd. It's a martial arts movie, a bunch of women forced to fight each other. Kind of a Mortal Kombat 80s villain vibe. Raphaello goes deep into his love for movies, the inspiration for this one. Check out the trailer, check out the cast. There's a lot to see, and enjoy the interview. Hey everyone, Adam here, So Wizard Podcast. I'm sitting down with Raphaello to talk about his latest movie, Unchained. How you doing, Raphaello?
I'm really great, Adam, and thank you for having me. This is a great honor for me to be on the podcast.
Definitely. Thank you for taking the time. And we talked about it a couple minutes before we hit record, but there was a mix-up in the StreamYard link. So I thought you were a no-show. You thought I was a no-show. So I'm glad we got this figured out.
I blame it on the gremlins.
Absolutely.
I see what they do. Now they've got digital versions.
Someone got them wet. So
Yeah. Fed them after midnight. We know how that works.
Exactly. The one kind of stable question I do have for pretty much everybody, because it's always a completely different answer, is I like to take people back to the beginning of their creative journey and ask what got you into movie making.
Well, I mean, it's an excellent question. And to be honest, it's lots of things. I kind of, as a child, I used to play with, Star Wars figures, He-Man figures, Transformers, and all this kind of stuff. You'd make stories as you would playing with them and thinking, oh, Megatron's going to do this, and Skeletor's going to do that. And this is kind of how it really is. It's just this long line of storytelling. Now, at the time, I didn't realize that this was something I'd be spending the rest of my life on. But the whole point was, here is something where we can escape the world. This is something that we can just throw out all the bad things that happened, because let's be honest, the last year has been somewhat unique, and we can just entertain ourselves. And it goes back to the old Homeric tradition of just sitting around telling stories and really living the glory days and stuff like that. So for me, I started off initially as an actor. I used to do a whole bunch of theater, as I'm sure that's a standard response a lot of people have given. But I found I could do a lot more damage behind the camera, a heck of a lot more damage. So there is a certain amount of power and control, which is really cool there. And the ability to actually see the performance from the bigger picture. Sometimes as an actor, you're concentrating on just one or two little things, but as a director, you can really see the arc of where it's really going. You can really see a much more interesting thing than just one individual performance. And one of those things that was taught to me when we were learning about directing, when we're doing theater directing, we're directing more the actor. But when you're directing film, you're directing productions. And so you're having to look at a much, much vaster animal. And it's a tough thing to tame, it has to be said, particularly at low level. It's a tough thing. But that's how I basically got into it. It was that love of storytelling, just trying to be part of this wonderful sort of lineage of storytellers throughout the age. And we're getting to work on a movie, a Hollywood movie. How cool is that? I mean, the 5-year-old in me is sitting there going, yes! So, I hope I can bring a little bit of light into everyone's lives in that sense.
That's a really cool way to put it, is, you're holding on to that childhood dream and the excitement of it, and you kind of get to play pretend for the rest of your life or however long you want to do it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And, again, when we're kids, we get all these wonderful times. We play as Batman, we play as Superman, we can do this, this, and this. But as we get older, we get all those social constraints. We're worried about what people think of us. We're worried about this, that, and the other. Whereas, the child in me just wants to play. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are like that. And it's wonderful that I'm being given this forum to do such a thing. I feel so tremendously gifted, because not everybody gets to do this. But for me, I'm like a kid in a candy store. It's like I get to make movies. So, yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. And I've been finding, especially given the last year, because life was, to look at it in a positive way, life was kind of forced to slow down so you could spend more time with family and maybe it slowed down too much for some people. I'm not trying to make light of it, but I found that having a creative outlet at all, maybe not making movies, but whatever someone might be into, just kind of helps your brain as a person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was one of the hardest things in a way, is keeping yourself occupied. Um, I mean, naturally, there were a lot of distractions. There are certain things that were hitting social media that we were all looking at. Tiger King, stuff like that. It was all over the place at one point. I did things like I went through the entire Masters of the Universe, old cartoons.
Oh, there
And
you go. Just in time for the new one.
yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking like, well, that's a useful thing. I think it's very important that we all do that every so often. And of course, I saw the new one that's coming on, and I actually saw on the recent podcast you guys did where you discussed it right at the beginning.
Mhm.
And I know not everybody felt the same way about this, but I thought the music choice was superb. I was popping like crazy. I'm like, yes, it's kind of like Cobra Kai. In a way, it had the right amount of nostalgia, but also the right amount of new stuff to attract a new viewer. And so I'm really stoked to see that. I really can't wait to see it.
Cobra Kai is kind of the perfect comparison because it's like, here's this cheesy 80s thing we all loved as kids. We're
Yeah.
going to acknowledge that it's a cheesy 80s thing, but we're also going to love it for that and do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Cobra Kai is a great example of this, and to a certain extent, The Mandalorian as well. It's almost like perfect sort of like Saturday morning TV cartoon in a way.
Mhm.
And I love this because for years and years, if I'm being honest, I didn't really enjoy a lot of TV. I felt like, maybe what I loved was being swept aside. And that's fine because, things progress and all that. But I'm seeing things, as always, coming in full circle. And you start to see that those things that you loved are being loved by a new generation. And one of the beauties of Cobra Kai in particular is they've created this young adult drama in the auspices of this, as you say, cheesy 80s thing. As I'm watching it, all I keep thinking is, you're the best. Oh,
Yeah.
Yet, some of the other people I'm working with who never saw the original are like, this is just a good show. I just really love the fact that they've written a fantastic thing in what could be just a nostalgia trip, but it isn't. There's so much more to it. So it's great.
Yeah, that's actually an important thing to point out too, is that it works on its own level. Because like I watch it with my wife, and I was a fan of the Karate Kid movies. She's never seen any of them, so we're both enjoying it, but totally different. I know I have to fix that now.
Yeah, definitely.
We're
Yeah,
kind of in the age of the fan film.
oh yeah. Well, my wife likes the originals, but she's very sort of skeptical about the whole thing. It's like, why would I want to watch this? You're telling me the bad guy's now the good guy and all this? I said, no, that's the beauty of it. In a way, there's shades of gray. And that's
Yeah.
what I love about it. Particularly in the first season, no one is truly the good guy and no one is truly the bad guy. It's about understanding their place. And sometimes you look at it and realize, hang on, that guy I was cheering for, I don't like him anymore. Now I like this guy. And it's really, really wonderful the way they put it all together.
It
So
is. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to how they continue it, because if you think about it, how many times can you spin this before it becomes difficult to, within the confines of that universe they built, go with it? But I see that they've bringing back a major villain from the third Karate Kid, and what can I say? I'm going to be there to watch it, as I will be with the Mandalorian for similar reasons. I love the fact we all love Boba Fett as kids, and now, okay, so it's not quite Boba Fett, but it's somebody from Mandalore, and now we're learning about all that history, and it's just a great Saturday morning cartoon done live action. And so, all this, it's a great time to be a geek and a nerd.
Oh, it could no better time. Absolutely.
Yeah, no better time.
No better time at all. I mean, we've had what, 10, 12 years of Marvel now, 13 years of Marvel now, doing it completely right across the board. Like it's great stuff.
Yeah, it's a great time to be alive, and just in time for a pandemic as well. So we had plenty to watch.
Plenty to keep us busy. Yeah. Going back to your career, what was the first, when you made the leap from actor to director, what was your first undertaking?
I was fortunate enough to have a teacher called Lyle Wilson, who is regrettably no longer with us, who installed in me a sort of sense of, come look at this behind the camera. you may not always understand as an actor because you're wrapped up in your world about this is what we're doing and this is my performance or whatever. But look at it in the viewfinder screen and you'll see that certain things that you think may work don't. So it's kind of like what we're doing now. I know I'm looking at myself here, but it looks like I'm constantly looking to the side and all that kind of stuff. I need to be aware where the camera actually is. And also I'm looking at myself thinking, oh my goodness, how red am I? Because it's pretty hot here at the minute. But these are the kind of things that when you're in front of the camera, you may not realize. You may think you're doing a great job. You may think you're really in the moment, but in actual fact, in terms of the bigger picture, you're missing all that. And I thought that was a wonderful way of looking at it and realizing, well, hang on, we can actually change this. We can control things. And even better than that, we can go into this wonderful thing called editing and change it some more. It's remarkable what technology allows us to do. I mean, think about it, just podcasting. We couldn't have done this like 10 years ago or whatever. We didn't have, cell phones and all that kind of stuff. We had to rely on maps. Now, through this incredible sorcery, we can talk to each other real time on video. I mean, it's so wizard of us. If you like.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
So hopefully didn't lose you any viewers from that awful pun. But anyway.
No, I'm sure they're used to it by now. No, that is a really good point. And not to keep going back to COVID, but this is also something that the pandemic kind of helped normalize. Like it used to be on a podcast, you would try to do the interview live if at all possible. Because with things like Zoom, even though it's gotten much better, or this is StreamYard that we're using, which I think has a little bit less of a delay, a little bit better audio quality, whatever you're using, there is that kind of disconnect where you're not exactly sitting across the table from me, but the delay is so minimal, we're rarely stepping on each other's saying, and we get the full intent and the full meaning. So it's much better than it's ever been. And being forced into it kind of made everyone accept it.
Oh, yeah. I remember at the time before all this happened, I was really skeptical of like video stuff, particularly when you get called up and you say, oh, no, I'm not out, drinking or whatever. I'm at home at the minute. And it's like, well, what's all those people behind you and the pub or whatever. So I thought, oh, no, it's going to be the end of any kind of excuses that you can give. But yes, as you say, it kind of normalized for everybody. And they realized, well, this is the new norm. We can work remotely. We can do, as you say, with minimal kind of a disruption, talk to each other as if we're in the same room. And that's wonderful to me, because it means you can talk to anybody across this wonderful planet that we live on and be able to get an interview or just connect. And I'm sure you have friends from all over the globe that without this, you would probably never see or speak to again. My people I was at school with or whatever, I can use this wonderful technology and see them. I can see their families. I can see what happens, where they're living now. And it's a wonderful thing. So I'm very grateful, even though initially I was like, I'm not so sure about this. Plus, on top of it, I knew so many people who, when they started it, meant they had to go into makeup before doing it and like doll themselves up. I'm like, it's just me. Come on. It's like nobody else is seeing this. But yeah, now I'm a believer, and I'm grateful that this has been able to alleviate a lot of the problems that we've had during this rather unprecedented pandemic. We are truly lucky in that respect.
For sure. It does open a lot of opportunities. Otherwise, for me to do an interview with you about your movie, I'd have to meet you at a film festival or a convention and try to carve out 5 minutes in a crowded convention floor, hope we can hear each other. Now it's one-on-one as long as we want, nice and quiet. So,
well, it would have been fun at the film convention too, because nobody ever wants to talk to me. They always want to talk to the actors, as I say. So it's like, you'll probably be fine with me. But yeah, again, it's a beautiful thing that we have this technology and the fact that we can do this. I think it's wonderful. So yeah, it's great.
Definitely. And speaking of the technology, are you finding as a director, filmmaker, the technology kind of takes down a lot of barriers to entry, but then at the same time maybe makes the pond into an ocean of the competition?
I don't look at it as competition. I'm a great believer that ultimately you can have all the best equipment, you can have everything perfect, but if you don't have the content, it doesn't matter what it is. And I'm sure you've seen certain YouTube channels where it looks like, it's just somebody running with an old VHS cam or whatever. Yeah, it's still millions of views. It's the content which is king. So to me, I'm like, well, it is great that technology has brought this barrier down for a lot of people. And it means, and I tell people this all the time, if you want to do something, just do it. Never have we had on our cell phones the ability to record video, even edit and do all this wonderful stuff. If you want to be a film director, you want to be an actor, you want to be a producer, you want to be any of these things, you can. You can make your own forum. You can do this. You can do a podcast. You can do all these things that 10, 15 years ago, forget it. There was no chance. Back in the day of film, you had to have a pretty sizable budget and understand about film ratio so you didn't waste money. You didn't have all this. Now with a digital camera, we'll take 1 million takes or whatever.
Right.
However, having said that, I am very old school about the fact I like to keep ratios down. I am, bless you. I'm a big fan of also, and I've always managed to do this, keep under budget and on time every single time. And I think that's very important if you want to make this a career. So you can learn from these. Doing short films will teach you what works and what doesn't. Robert Rodriguez, I think it was in Rebel Without a Crew, where he basically said, if you've got the money to go to film school, make a movie. Because ultimately, experience is one of the best teachers. And I'm not belittling everything they teach you at film school, but as you say, technology is something which often they are a little bit lagging. They sometimes don't teach every advance. And I was asked this question regarding directing the other day. I said, in a way, a good director should know all the facets of filmmaking. They should know how to edit. They should know cinematography. They should know about acting. And most importantly, they need to know about advances in filmmaking, because quite often for the indie filmmaker, they'll be told, I want a ProRes 442 HQ thing of this. If you don't know what that codec is, then, you're lost. A lot of people will withhold that information because they want to be, paid to do it or whatever. So we live in the information age. Genuinely, information is out there. You can learn almost anything. And I would say to people, if you have a dream to make a movie, just do it. That's the most important thing in the world. It's just, you can. No one's going to stop you. You can go out there and take your cell phone and film whatever movie you want. And no one can stop you. You can do this for minimal budget. You can make it look pretty decent. And who knows, maybe somebody will look at it and say, you know what, I want to throw some money at that guy because they know what they're doing. So, and that's, ultimately, we have to always think of it as a job as well, which, again, another thing I tend to talk about directing, you have to finish what you start. You have to, when you start something, you finish it. You know exactly where it's going to go. And, don't blame other people or other, external factors. It's up to you to find a way of getting it done. And again, I remember a quote from Napoleon who said, it's only a bad plan that cannot be changed. And I'm a big believer in that. I will change plans on set if I see the set doesn't work or this doesn't work, because we got, time is money. We got to get things done. But again, it's a beautiful time to be alive.
There's a lot of good advice packed in there for sure. I like what you're saying about, one, if you want to do something, do it. There's no such thing as the perfect time, and no one's going to come knocking on your door and giving you permission or unlimited budget. You just got to find a way to make it work. Mm-hmm. And I also like how you tagged it up with, if you start something, finish it. Because I can't imagine how many unfinished movies, screenplays, songs, poems, just name anything creative. Yeah. There's 10 times unfinished what there is finished or more.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And you'd be surprised. Well, I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised by this, but a lot of people who are not in the movie industry may be surprised how much work even a short requires. Mm-hmm. So, without giving too much away, I've seen shorts that I've been called in to work on that were shot maybe 6 or 7 years ago and still not finished. And a lot of my jobs are often as a fixer. I come in to see a production that's semi in distress. I identify the problem, I cut it out, whatever the problem is, and then we try and fix it with reshoots or whatever. And sometimes I'm always amazed by certain people who, and again, there's no names mentioned. It's just that sometimes they don't have that work ethic of just simply finishing it. You have to complete what you do, because if Marvel comes along and gives you $200 million and you're, wishy-washy and you're not, I mean, you're never going to work again, basically. And
Right.
if you want to do this as your career, you have to apply that not just the knowledge and the artistic skill and all that, it's the ability to complete. And I cannot tell you how much that has booked me work over the time because of the fact that they know I will come in under budget, on time, and I complete. That is very, very important.
That's another interesting point too. I mean, it makes total sense when you say it. Of course, someone wants to be on time and under, but like those all make sense. But the way that you put it and you word it, it's like the consistency of it. You're not like getting an ego about being an auteur. Or I'm going to do these things and I'm the best ever. It's just like I am going to do the best job I can, but I'm also going to do the best job I can as a professional, not just as a creative.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned creative because I always tell people that true creativity is not about having everything and unlimited budget and all that. It's about working within limitations. So there's that famous quote, I'm probably misquoting it somewhat, of Akira Kurosawa, where he said, somebody asked him, why did you get that fantastic shot in Rashomon or whichever movie it was? And he said, I had to because there's a Toyota factory on the one side and a Honda factory on the right. So it had to be that shot. And I think Fellini also talked about, if you want a creative to actually do something, you have to put some kind of restrictions on them because then they understand it has to be done in this box. And once you understand that this box is non-negotiable, you get creative inside it. So if you think about like Star Wars, for instance, I'm sure a movie we all know pretty well. If you look at it, there are other science fiction movies, but very few can actually say that do what they achieved, whether it be through the John Williams score, whether it be the successful molding of almost swashbuckling Errol Flynn movies with the Buck Rogers and stuff like that, and also a certain element of Greek mythology as well. It's a wonderful thing, but they did it within restrictions. They did it understanding, well, we don't always have the budget. We don't always can do this. We can't do that. So as I said, true creativity, in my opinion, is always being able to work within limitations as opposed to having everything.
That makes a lot of sense too, and that's should be another good piece of advice for people who want to get their indie micro budget movie off the ground, or someone in 10 friends with an iPhone and a decent microphone from Amazon can go out and do something. Just have to figure out how to make it look the best it can look or be the best it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing to me when people worry too much about, oh, I don't have this, I don't have a red camera, I don't have an Arri Alexa, I don't have this. I said, honestly, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you have content, content is king every time. Another famous adage, which again, I'm full of these things, is, perfect is the enemy of finished. You will never achieve perfection if you're an artist. You're always going to be worried about this shot and that. And I watch Unchained and I'm sitting there going, oh, I wish I could have done this. I wish I could have done that. But it's done. And that's the real key, is being able to finish the piece and say, okay, I'm not going to worry about all the things I could have done and just maybe use it as a life lesson about how I can improve for the next piece.
That's a good point too. And since you're doing a lot of quotes from famous directors, I don't know the quote exactly, but I remember after Kill Bill came out, Tarantino said, now I want to make a martial arts movie because I know how to make a martial arts movie since I had to learn how to make one. Yeah. So basically he didn't know what he was doing. He figured out along the way, got the best result he could do, and says, oh, now I know how to do this. I should go and do this properly. Which comes from like Tarantino, who's, one of the best ever.
Yeah. It's like, but it shows you again how even the best of us, those who we have on our pedestals, etc., they're still learning and improving as they go along. And again, it comes back to that wonderful sort of chain of we're doing this all from the back, this need to tell storytelling around a campfire, and then we move into theater and the written word and radio and finally TV and film. It's an incredible progression that we have, and we're constantly learning how to do things. And when we learn it, suddenly the goalposts move because some other brilliant director or whatever has just created something that completely shakes up the world, and we all want to learn how they did it too. So, again, Tarantino has, obviously, I'm sure he knows how to make all these things, but at the same time, much like Robert Rodriguez said about, if you've got the money, make your film because you will learn more from doing that. He's doing that same thing. And I think it's totally true. And again, some people, they will dismiss these kind of genres as being simple and easy or whatever. But to make a really good Kung Fu movie is actually a lot of fun. Actually, that's a good idea. Maybe I should put that as one for my bucket list. I got to make a real Kung Fu movie. That would be fantastic.
That was one of my main questions when we got to Unchained, is how you go about doing the choreography and stuff. I don't know if that's jumping the gun a little bit, but it is fascinating because when you watch any, like, I love when Jackie Chan at the back of his movies would put his outtakes or how he set it up. And then he did this like mini movie thing about how he works with his stunt crew. And it's just, it boggles the mind how you put something like that together.
Oh yeah, it's really impressive stuff. I got to say, our actors, they did really well in the sense that a lot of them were not actually fighters. They had never actually done this before. Gene Freeman, who was our stunts, and he did a lot of the stunt coordination and things. He's also in the movie briefly. He worked on The Mandalorian, and he helped put a lot of this together. And for me, again, this is an example of me pivoting on a dime. Originally, I was going to shoot it really close and really kind of to hide the fact that we didn't have a huge budget. But once we got to that location, I loved the artwork. I thought, well, let's have the scene be part of the scene. That could actually work quite nicely. Also, in addition to being a film nerd and all that, I love video games. And so for me, I wanted to play with tempo of pace. And particularly when people are not always, should we say, hitting each other, because they couldn't, as part of the insurance, they said, you can't hit each other. I thought, well, if I manipulate the time and the speed of the frame rates and stuff like that, I can make something that looks kind of like Max Payne. I mean, if you remember that game, there was the bullet time kind of thing where something, something like that. I also saw little things in Blizzard's Hero of the Storm. There's a bit where there's a level where there's an angel and a demon fighting each other, and they go super slow, and then boom, hit each other and go all this. So video games and films influenced me a whole bunch on these kind of things. And the choreography and all that we had to change because of certain restrictions. But it came out looking pretty cool, I thought. It looked like, oh, wow, that looks kind of video gamey. And I kind of feel the whoa, boom, that kind of thing, which I kind of liked as well. It was also very 80s in a lot of ways. So I wear my influences on my sleeve. It's obvious.
Well, you should. I mean, it's the genres you love, so why not lean into them, because you're going to speak to everyone else who loves them.
Yeah, indeed. I remember some people when they first saw it, it's like, that doesn't look like the UFC or whatever. And I said, well, yeah, it doesn't look like the UFC.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not. And they actually hit each other. Spoiler alert. But it's kind of one of those things that I had a vision of, okay, when we got there, let's try this. Let's see how this works. And, not probably to jump ahead because you may be asking about that, is the pro wrestling connection. I know a lot of these guys, they know how to make things look good. And, I would sometimes talk a little bit with Rock Riddle about how certain things can work and certain things can't. And of course, they know how to do it live. So they don't even have the benefit often of having an edit. They're going to have to make something look really, really good. So I again went back to watching some early 90s wrestling. I'm, a big fan of people like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, because particularly with Bret Hart, everything he did looked like it hurt. It really didn't look crap in a way. It didn't look like a choreographed piece of dance. It looked like, wow, that backbreaker, that side Russian leg sweep, his elbow off the second rope, they look like they're going to hurt. So again, it's the child in me. I want to believe. I want you guys to take me on a wonderful little story ride. And sometimes video games, films, pro wrestling, they took me on that ride. And for the fight choreography, it's all these little things blended into one. And hopefully, we semi-succeeded in doing that.
It's interesting when you said that you were at first going to do all the fight scenes like really tight up and close, like to kind of hide the budget, but pulling the camera back and really letting the people get into it and do their thing, I think it adds a ton of scope and production value to the movie, like showing the whole background, the people going at it, to me anyway, sells it a lot more as an action movie. Because even like the first of the Bourne movies, I mean, the Bourne movies are good, But when it's like 7 cuts and you see like the back of a guy's elbow and you're not really sure who's fighting who, it's like, it's hard to say like, oh, Jason Bourne's a badass. It's like, well, is he? I'm not sure what he really did. So I appreciate that you pulled back.
No, I agree. And again, going back to 80s movies, you'll see that they do that. And I feel that's one of the reasons John Wick works so well, is the fact that they do it much wider than those kind of quick cuts. I actually had a semi-argument regarding the Bourne series, because particularly the second one, Bourne Supremacy, I couldn't tell what was going on half the time.
Yeah.
And to me, when I see so many quick cuts, my first thought is you're covering up. It means they're not really fighting, they're not doing it. But at least in the first one, Jason Bourne's movements seemed pretty crisp. But again, I kept thinking, okay, well, this is modern action movies. I'm just going to have to learn to like it. But we're starting to see, again, people coming back to that kind of 80s thing. And again, John Wick is a great example of this. Simple tale told well. They kill his dog, I'm going to kill you. It's that simple. It's Kung Fu movies is the same thing. A friend of mine, a great friend of mine in England, he always talks about Jason Statham movies. And he says, if you want to distill any Jason Statham movie, here is what it is. Jason Statham gets in a car and kills lots of people. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. I'm watching that film.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but again, as you say, when I saw the location and the artwork and everything on the walls, I thought I can pull colors from there. I can look at this and it sort of makes it vastly more interesting. And a second one is background players. There are numerous films where I may see the actors in front, but there's some one-liner or one like guy just standing there or gal standing there, and you're thinking, they're really making the movie like really, really impressive. Whether it be in Ghostbusters, where the guy says, you the exterminators or something, and he says, it must be some roach. It's just 1, 2 or 3 lines, and it's fantastic. And there's so many movies where Spinal Tap. There's a bit where they're doing that bit where we're doing the new era of Spinal Tap. Here's our jazz odyssey, and there's some guy who's out of focus sitting there just doing this, just with his thumb down. And I'm thinking that says it all right there. So there are lots of little things that some of the background guys did in those fight scenes, which again most people are not going to notice, and that's fine. But for me, I pop on. I'm just like, I love what you did there. The smirk, or just the little things that you're doing. It just adds more authenticity to the scene. And I'm so glad that we did shoot it wider. It looks much better that way. And we had a lot of fun doing it.
I couldn't really picture it being the same movie if everything was really tight and close up and the fighting was, because in my mind anyway, that would make the fighting almost secondary.
Yeah.
It'd be like plot. Oh, there's a fight scene now. I can kind of tune out because I know this person's going to be that person. That's all I need to know, and then move on. But when you really pull it back and give the audience something, it's way, way cooler.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We kind of jumped ahead. So for people who listening who haven't seen Unchained, do you want to give them kind of your elevator pitch? Because we're talking about all this fighting and working with wrestlers and stuff, but they're like, wait, what is Unchained?
Oh, yeah, we made a movie. So maybe we should talk about that. So Unchained, it is a, girl basically down on her luck gets kidnapped, forced to fight in an underground fighting ring for the amusement of a mysterious benefactor. And I know a lot of people are going to say, I've seen this movie before. And you have. And that's the whole point, is the fact that all stories have been told before. There are 100 million versions of Romeo and Juliet and all that kind of stuff. Talking about Jason Statham movies, they're all pretty much the same. Kung Fu movies are pretty much all the same. Do we love them? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they are exactly what we want to see. So I watched Predator again the other day. I love that film. But people are saying, oh, it's just monster and it's macho, this, and this. No, it's a great freaking movie. That's what it is. So it's, I tell people all the time, it's that timeless tale of a girl meets boy with baseball bat and how she's going to escape. And, it's entertainment at the end of the day. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. But what I am trying to do is give you a little bit of happiness in this bleak time that we have, and that we can have a little bit of fun. So, hopefully people will like it. Please watch the movie. July 2nd, it comes out.
Oh, July 2nd. I put it's available now on the ticker. Sorry, because I was
okay. So
I was watching the trailer and it said watch now on Plex TV, and I was like, oh, it's out now. Okay, I gotta.
And I don't think it's on Plex. I think it's on Amazon and in demand as well, I believe.
Well, I'm sorry about that. And the ticker was wrong for the last half hour.
I'm glad I didn't look at it.
There we go. I should have asked you before I hit record, but I thought I did my homework.
Yeah, it's okay. Believe me, I understand. As we already talked about technology, things.
I know. I'm had a couple blips today. So how did Unchained come across your desk? Because you didn't write this, did you?
I did mostly write it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Producer friends, as I say, it's cool. My producer friends had a lot into it, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about them for a second. Ilia Constantine, John Bryan, and Tatiana Rusakova. Without them, there is no film. It's that simple. But what we did, I tell people all the time, I wish there was some wonderful story how we came from the four corners of the earth together to make this incredible film or whatever. We sat at Aroma Cafe, which is on Sunset Boulevard here, and I was sitting there going like, I just want to make a film. I'm fed up of doing this, this, and this. Let's do something. And they said, okay, let's do a movie. Okay, let's do a movie. And so that's how it sort of came about. The script was written fairly fast. And again, that's another thing which I think is kind of important for looking at this as a vocation as opposed to a hobby. I'm a great believer that good scripts are written fairly fast. They're not written over the course of years. They're more written in the course of, let's say, a month or two, and then basically revised a little bit here and there. But if you know that your production line needs to finish a movie within X amount of time, then suddenly it becomes more important for you to finish the script, finish the film. But yeah, it was just us sitting at Aroma Cafe, which actually is in the movie. It's actually, they were wonderful in that they let us actually shoot there. And we just decided, hey, let's make a movie. Let's see what we can do. We'll roll the dice, and we're betting on ourselves. And sometimes that's the best bet you can ever make.
Oh, I think it always is, yeah. So you guys said, let's make a movie. Where did the plot idea come into? Did you say, let's make a revenge movie? Oh, I happen to know this awesome female fighter. We can base it around her. Or were you kind of spitballing ideas and a revenge or escape kind of idea came up? And
we were spitballing ideas. And again, one of the things that's great about my producer friends is I tend to go on harebrained schemes. I'll come out there and I'll say, oh, I'd like to do this. I'd like to do that. I'd like to do this and that. And then they're going, you know, we can't actually do that. It's like, I want to shoot on the moon. Maybe not, you know, that kind of thing. So we settled on something like this because in a way, it's a simple tale. And all tales are very, very, all good movies that I feel are simple tales. They may be told in interesting different ways, like Pulp Fiction may be told in a different way, but it's actually a very simple tale when you actually watch it. And so that was one of the things. And come back to our lead, Mair, I believe she hadn't actually done any fighting before. And she came highly recommended from a couple of my producer friends. And after working with her for a short while, I could see exactly why. That girl really works. She always is one of the first people on set. She is always dedicated 100% to what's going on there. She took the classes to get better for fighting. She took, I can't remember, like a good month or so before, preparing to do some of these things, getting in shape, getting ready to do some of this stuff. And again, just her dedication, the way that she worked was just, it was inspiring to me. Because again, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I've never met this person before. This could be a disaster. No, she really was the glue that stuck it all together. So I'm really grateful to Mair for being not only the worker that she was, but being able to bring her own slant to everything and making a great film at the same time. So props to Mair.
I don't mean this to sound disparaging to her or accusatory in any way, but having not met her and she didn't have a fighting background, why or who cast her in the role?
Well, it was kind of, again, collaborative process always when we're doing this. And she was recommended by both John and Ilia, and I said, okay, if you guys think that she's good, then that's kind of good enough for me. And we kind of, as is often the case with low budget movies, we had to shoot certain scenes at certain times because of the we couldn't get certain other things. So the restaurant scene was the first ever thing we shot. And we shot that at Spartina Restaurant here in LA. So shout out to them. Thank you very much for that. And I just watched what she was doing, just little things. I'm a great stickler for tiny little adjustments to someone's performance. But for her, I was thinking, wow, I don't really need to adjust it. She got it. She pretty much nailed it. And that's when I realized afterwards, okay, I'm not blind casting here. I was effectively giving this as a trial run. And if we needed to, maybe we could reshoot it because it was just that one scene we were shooting. But it worked out so well. And I'm so, so glad that John Nelia recommended her, because I think in the hands of a lesser actress, this could have been an absolute disaster. So she was hardworking and really pulled it off. So I'm eternally grateful to Mair for doing it.
The casting process is always really interesting because the right person, even maybe if it's not necessarily the lead role, the right person to make or break a movie or a story. And I find that is even more so in the smaller budget movies, that you get this one person and the movie just comes together and works and everyone revolves around them. And it's just like, man, if anyone else would have been the result. So it's really cool that you got that. You kind of took a leap of faith and it worked out so well and your people knew exactly what they were looking for.
Well, in life, often we have to take leaps of faith. And you have to take that risk sometimes. It's just, okay, well, this is kind of unknown. And believe me, usually I like constants rather than variables. But ultimately, in this particular case, it worked out well. So I'm really happy about that. Some of the other casting, obviously, we were a little bit more deliberate about, but she just was one of those happy, I'm not going to say accidents, because that isn't quite the word. It's one of those happy things that happened that I was like, wow, the universe gave me this. She came into our lives and did this wonderful thing. So fantastic.
Worked out better than you could have imagined.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And I know you also had Eric Roberts in the movie, who is in so many things. He's great.
Yeah.
How did that casting come about?
Well, I've worked somewhat tangentially with him before when I produced films or whatever. And I knew one of the big things about Eric Roberts, and this is something that a lot of people forget, he's Oscar nominated. When you see him perform, he is absolutely amazing. In fact, I remember when we shot him, John, one of the producers, we were together, and I was just like, wow, he did a great job. And I think John even said, like, wow, he's going to make the rest of us look bad. Like, we need to up our level. And that was a wonderful thing, is he took a very simple role. And he even told me at the time, he just loved to play a father. It's just such a simple thing. Usually he's told to play bad guy or this thing, or he's asked to play a rehash of what he did in Best of the Best or King of the Gypsies, one of really old movie he did. And he didn't here. He was just a simple father figure at the end of the day. And he did it so well. Pretty much everything was the first take. He managed to take simple wording, which in the hands of a lesser actor would have just sounded stilted and dull or whatever, and made it sound really interesting. And even for me, who's seen it many, many times, particularly the very opening scene where he's talking to the younger version of Mair's character, who's actually played by my niece, it just works out so well because it looks like they're in the same room. But what actually happened was he shot that in Sherman Oaks in LA, and she shot that in London, England. And so it's like completely international cast, international sets and locations. But that's the positive thing. He knew that that's what we were going to do. And it looked like they were in the same room. And it's fantastic. I am so grateful because of the fact that by working with people who've done so many things, who are at that top 1% that we all aspire to do, it makes me better. It inspires me to be the better guy and suddenly go, you know what? I'm going to shoot for that moon, because even if I miss the moon, I'll take my place among the stars, as they say. And it sounds corny, but the fact is that's what you want to do. You want to honor those people and be one of the best people they've ever worked with, because you know then if they compliment you about something, it's really means something. So that, Eric Roberts was absolutely fantastic. And I hope to work with him on quite a few other things too.
Very cool. Yeah, he's great in everything, and shocking how much you see him in things, but at the same time not, because he's an actor. He wants to work, and everyone wants to work with him because he's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I guess one more casting kind of centric question is: you have more than a couple pro wrestlers in this.
Yeah.
Where was the connection there?
Well, as I said, as a child, I was a big fan of pro wrestling, still am. And I watch everything. It's pretty sad. Everybody tells me, what? You watch all that? I got time for WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling. Hell, I'm even watching New Japan. That's the kind of wrestling nerd I am. And wrestling, to me, has always been the finest form of physical theater on the planet. These guys do it live. They don't have the benefit of a stuntman taking over or having to do this. And I'm sorry, this is going to break some people's illusions, but Chrishellsworth doesn't actually fly as Thor. There's CGI and stuff doing that. Whereas when somebody does moonsault, they are actually doing it. And it's amazing to me that dexterity and physical application that they have to do that. We were extremely lucky in that I've known Rock Riddle for quite a while. He works as a publicist, but also a 3-time Hall of Famer. He's been through it all. He was on the Gong Show in the 70s and stuff like that. It's amazing. He was also in Paradise Alley with Stallone. And for me, working with that guy was amazing because of the fact that they can do things on the spur of the moment that the lesser actor wouldn't be able to do. So, for instance, his role initially was just a very, typical stuff that I would normally write. I'm like, whatever. The second I said, do what you can and make it your own, he improv'd those lines. The referee is nobody. And I said, that's our trailer there, right there. That's fantastic. And I also loved the way he delivered certain lines when, Mair says to him, I'm being held against my will. And he says, aren't we all? It's just, again, wonderfully creepy. And at the same time, when he finished the referee is nobody, everyone on set was applauding. And we were all thinking, God, we should have had this guy more in the movie. He's just excellent. We even thought of little things like at the end of the credits, could we have him in a hot tub with, a couple of girls just talking about how great his life is or something. But, again, these are all thoughts for maybe an Unchained 2.
There you go.
Like but yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. And then it brings me to Taya Valkyrie. Now, I have seen Taya work in Lucha Underground, which was fantastic. If you guys haven't seen it, you can see it all on Netflix now. She's working with her husband, who is John Morrison over in WWE. And they were fantastic. I loved it. Their trio stuff with the Machine, Brian Cage, was great. And I just realized this woman can kick ass, and she looked great doing it. So then I saw her move into Impact Wrestling. And as I was writing the script, the original character's name was Freya. I had this Nordic kind of like almost Red Sonja kind of character in mind. And she came, her original thing in Impact Wrestling, she has Game of Thrones kind of queen of the Norse gods come down. And I was like, I want to cast that woman. She's fantastic. She's great. And then when you see her do her La Huera Loca, the crazy blonde, she's amazing. So I was sitting there going, it's only a matter of time before she's picked up. And lo and behold, in Mexico, she is, I believe, the longest reigning Reina de Reinas champion over there. She held the title 3 times for like almost 3 years or something ridiculous like that. She also is the longest reigning Impact champion as well, the women's champion there. And now she's in WWE, in NXT. And as far as I'm concerned, she's a WrestleMania main event waiting to happen. We know that she has it. We know that she can really kick ass. And I'm hoping to see more of her and her husband, John Morrison, who we tried to get in a movie at one point, but sadly that didn't get funded. But, I'm just thinking that those two deserve all the success in the world. They are wonderful people, wonderful performers, and I'm really hoping Vince McMahon pushes them to the moon because they're fantastic.
That's really cool. It's really...
Oh, sorry, I should mention, in WWE, her character name is Frankie Monet. Just so people are like, who is this Taya Valkyrie? She's Frankie Monet. She just debuted, and she's going to be having another match, I believe, next week with her encore performance. So I really am looking forward to seeing who she's going to squash this time.
It's too bad she had to change Valkyrie out of her name. That's a great name for a fighter.
Ooh, it's a fantastic name, but she chose Frankie Monet from what I'm guessing, and I think it's such a great androgynous name as well. Frankie, you don't know, is it a guy or a girl? And Monet, well, she is the Monet, so to speak. And I'm sorry about all these terrible puns, but Mel Brooks, remember the Count de Monet and all that? So it's a similar thing. But she is genuinely going to raise the gold standard to the Loca standard. So I can't wait for her to be not only challenging for the NXT Women's Championship, but taking that and holding the Raw and SmackDown one as well. Maybe we need a triple champion, and that's Taya Valkyrie. That's Frankie Monet. You've got to give her on that.
I love the excitement you have for all of this stuff and how you manage to get it all into your work. It's inspiring, but it's also infectious. It's so fun.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, because again, we live in a life with so many down things, and you're always depressed about this, that, and the other. I'm a simple entertainer at the end of the day. I want to entertain you. I want to take a little piece of your lives that you're sitting there just bored, and I want to whisk you away. I want to take your hand and just say, just forget everything that's terrible about life at the minute. Let's just watch this movie. Let's make another movie. Let's do stuff. Let's have fun, because life is good at the end of the day. And I want people to know that life really is good. And we dwell far too much on the negatives and not enough on the positives. So, out there in internet land and everything, I want to help you get through your lives and just make things better at the end of the day. So help me help you. Very sort of like Jerry Maguire.
I don't think we're going to do better than that, and I don't want to eat up your entire day. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. It was a lot of fun. It was awesome. I would love to do this again, your next project or whenever you're available. I guess we kind of talked about it's coming out July 2nd on VOD. So if you saw the ticker in the beginning, ignore that I said it's available now on Plex TV. IMDb had it wrong.
Look how it is now.
There you go. I fixed it now. It's good to go. And you said it'll be on Amazon, iTunes, like all the big platforms?
I believe so. I think it's exclusively on Amazon to begin with.
Okay.
I know it's on in demand, so anybody who has cable will be able to pick it along with the pay-per-views, UFC and all that. It's on the same thing. And as I said before, I just hope people enjoy it. I hope, again, that I bring something to your lives and that we can all collectively forget 2020 and the pandemic and all that kind of stuff. And of course, I got another movie that we just finished as well, called The Year of Laughing Dangerously, and another one that we're just beginning shooting now, which has a code name for now, so it doesn't actually have a name. So I'm intending to bring lots of stuff your way, hopefully.
That's fantastic. And one more thing, do you want to tell people where they can find you online, your socials or website or anything else you want to promote?
Well, you can find out a lot of me if you want a lot of me. A lot of the things, if you want to connect with me, is on Instagram. I'm relatively new to Instagram. I resisted it for so long. But you can find me at Director Raphaello. That's the Greek spelling, Raphaello, on Instagram. I'm more than happy to talk with people and talk stuff about movies, nerdity, wrestling, cartoons, anything that people want. You can also see some of my stuff over at Nemesis Multimedia, oneword.com. I also have Raphaello.net, which has a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm just so grateful, Adam, that you took the time to talk to me and that I've been on the So Wizard podcast. I'll be able to put that on my bucket list right there.
There you go. Anytime. That was a ton of fun.
I'd like to thank Raphaello one more time for coming on the podcast to talk to me about his newest movie, Unchained, and as I can't make clear enough, I screwed up the banner. Apologies to him for that. But Unchained is available July 2nd on VOD. It's a fun movie. You should definitely check it out. And we should have an actress with the lead, Mulroney, coming up as well, so keep an eye out for that. A lot more interviews, a lot more new movie coverage coming your way, so make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Helps us grow our audience, helps you not miss out on cool stuff. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week, wherever you get your podcasts. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, merchandise, videos, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments, leave us something on social media. All of our accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comic series out right now. It's called Social Studies. It's a slice-of-life comedy comic about the high school experience and all the insanity and ridiculousness and drama that goes along with it. We write it like a sitcom, we keep it light, we keep it fun, and we take all those elements, mix them up, and jam them through the prism of the 90s cartoons that we grew up on. We love hearing all the different cartoons that people see the inspiration from, whether it's one of the Nicktoons or Recess or Ed, Edd n Eddy or even something like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Check that out, socialstudiescomic.com. Thanks.